Kenny Dillingham's first year in Tempe, Arizona with the Arizona State Sun Devils was ultimately not all that great. He went 3-9, and overall, just a lot of things happened to go wrong for this Sun Devil team last season. And now there is a ton of overturn with this program. A bunch of transfers leave. Arizona State has left the Pac 12 to join their rival Arizona in the Big 12 Conference. Can Kenny Dillingham's Arizona State Sun Devils cause some havoc in the Big 12 and improve in year 1 to year 2? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome back to prediction season. Our final team out of the Big 12 as we are almost done with Power 4 teams. Guys, I'm predicting each and every one of the 134 college football teams this summer, and we are well more than halfway done. If you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you got to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when videos get uploaded, especially during the season. Interact with the channel any way you can, and I want to thank you so much for watching this video because, well, it helps support my channel in probably more ways you can imagine. Liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, watching my other videos, they all help support the channel, and they all mean a lot to me. So thank you all so much. And now let's dive on into Arizona State Sun Devil football in 2024. How do we do that? Well, we'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we will go through the schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. Couple things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the team's stats they put up either offensively or defensively last season. And of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. This was an offense that overall just was not very good last season. There was no consistency throwing the football, no consistency running the football. The offensive line gave up 30 sacks last year. The rushing game only had 3.6 yards per carry. They weren't a very good team on third down. They didn't score the football. Not a whole lot went right for Arizona State offensively in 2024. And at the quarterback position, well, there's going to be a lot of overturn here. Jaden Rashada, who was a highly recruited player coming out of high school, has entered the transfer portal. He is now going over to sit behind Carson Beck for a year at Georgia, and then eventually, likely that starting quarterback in 2025. But he's an extremely talented player that, well, saw his struggles here in Tempe, had 485 yards on 82 pass attempts, four touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and was sacked 6 times. Definitely some development needs to be made in his game, but at his peak, he's a really talented player that you lose through the portal. Drew Pine has also gone through the portal, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks for him last season, and Jacob Conover is gone. Those were 3 quarterbacks to throw passes for Arizona State last year. The main one, though, who ended up being the leading passer at the end of the day, was the overall team's leading passer, the overall team's primary starting quarterback. That was Trenton Bourguet. 1,489 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 picks. So yes, through 248 passes, but only 1 touchdown with 4 picks. I mean, man, that's a very rough stat line there for Bourguet. So they ended up bringing some guys in through the transfer portal to see if they could play quarterback here for this team. Sam Levitt is coming over from Michigan State. Only 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks from last season, but he is the favorite right now to win that starting role. You also do have Jeff Sims coming in, who by all means is a very good athlete, but has had a lot of turnover troubles during his collegiate career. Last season at Nebraska, just 1 touchdown with 6 interceptions. And you go back and watch that Colorado game, man, Jeff Sims was really just not overall that great. So the quarterback situation here with Arizona State, you lose your most talented player in Jaden Rashada through the portal. Drew Pine is gone. He was a very experienced option. Bourguet saw his struggles last year. Levitt hasn't gotten much playing time. Sims has turnover trouble. It'll be really interesting to see what the quarterback battle looks like for Arizona State this year. I believe that Sam Levitt is in to win that starting job, to be that starting quarterback. But again, not a lot of college experience for him. We'll see what ends up happening with Arizona State at quarterback in 2024. But for right now, let's move on to whoever the starting quarterback happens to be, what they have in the skill position room. Because in the running back room, you do lose a couple of guys here, albeit they were depth pieces last season. Jevin Jacobs and George Hart. I'll fix that spelling. Apologies for that, but George Hart also does leave here. So Jacobs and Hart, 2 depth pieces. Yes, they did not have many carries last year, but they're losses in the running back room nonetheless. That means, though, that you do get your 2 leading rushers from last season back. Cameron Scatabo, he had 783 yards on 164 carries with 9 touchdowns last season. DeCarlos Brooks was the clear number 2 behind him. 259 yards, 3 touchdowns on 48 carries. Actually had a higher yards per carry average by, I think, a little more than a half a yard over Scatabo last season. And you get some guys coming over from the portal that, in all honesty, can probably provide some really good minutes here in the running back room. Rayleigh Brown is a transfer. that is going to be coming over from USC, and Alton McCaskill, a former 1,000-yard rusher with the Houston Cougars, now transfers over after being underutilized, at least he felt like so, at Colorado. So both of those guys come over to give what I think is actually going to end up being a pretty solid running back room here for Arizona State. A lot of good talent in that room. You move on to the wide receiver room, though, and you do lose two really big pieces out of that room. Scataba was the team's third leading receiver last season, but out of the wide receiver room alone, you lose two very, very impactful players there. Geo Sanders was more of a depth piece here, but he's run out of eligibility. He has graduated. 15 catches for 133 yards, still a pretty viable option for the most part. Again, a little bit of a depth piece in this room, but not a super huge depth piece in that wide receiver room. But the biggest loss in the wide receiver room comes in terms of your leading receiver, Elijah Badger, who has entered his name into the transfer portal. He will be playing football this season for the Florida Gators in 2024. You also are losing a couple guys out of the tight end room through the portal. Jalen Conyers is gone. He's off to Texas Tech. Really good tight end for the team last year. Oh, I didn't even go through Badger's stat line. 713 yards, 3 touchdowns on the team, high 65 catches for Badger. You move on to Jalen Conyers, 362 yards on 30 catches. He was the team's second leading receiver last year. Bryce Pierre also does leave, and Messiah Swinson is a tight end that does go off to the NFL. Only 6 catches, 48 yards for him, but nonetheless, you'll see him play on Sunday. So with all those losses in the pass catching room, what do you have coming back? Well, you still do have some pretty good options here. Xavier Gilroy is back, 226 yards and a touchdown for him last season. I will butcher this last name, so I apologize. Trey Omier, I believe is how you say it, but I'm probably wrong. Please let me know how to say it in the comment section below. He does come back, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns from last season. Melquan Stovall is a high upside piece. Jake Smith, Caleb Black all come back, while Malik McLean is a guy that comes in through the transfer portal. He's over from Penn State, who could see some pretty big playing time minutes here, but the tight end room is going to be built entirely through the transfer portal this season. Marcuston Douglas, Cameron Harpole, and Chamon Medier are all in from the transfer portal in this tight end room. They hail from one second here. Florida State, and Douglas Medier was originally committed to Colorado, then went over to Arizona State, but he's from Cincinnati, and Harpole comes in as well from San Diego State. On the offensive line, Aaron Frost is off to the league, while Isaiah Glass is off to the transfer portal. So your offensive line room looks like this. Ben Coleman, Emmett Bull, Sean Naa, Max, I will butcher this last name as well, Aihin Akor, will be coming back, as well as Lee Faltanu, and some guys through the portal, Josh Atkins and Joey Sua coming in through the portal. They could see big-time playing minutes on the offensive line, and when you talk about the offense overall, you just have to feel like in a lot of positions they're taking a step back, or they maybe just aren't necessarily as proven. Again, what's the quarterback situation going to look like? Levitt, probably the guy that's going to get that starting job, but really, how well does he play? How well does he develop? I think the running back room is the one thing that you can really count on here, even though it wasn't that great last season. I think that's going to be a consistent, really good piece of this Arizona State offense, but the offensive line has got to get better. How's the wide receiver room going to look with Badger gone, especially a lot of these pieces in the tight end room gone as well? Conyers, Pierre, Swinson. This is just going to be a really interesting year for Arizona State's offense. They have a lot of pieces to build off of, but how do the guys from the portal fit in? A lot of questions on the Sun Devil offense here in 2024. 2024 Arizona State Sun Devil defense. Let's talk about it, but in order to talk about the team in 2024, have to talk about the team in 2023. Fairly solid rush defense overall, but the pass defense was not that great last year. The third down defense was good at times, but overall not that great. They allowed almost 400 yards per game, almost 32 points per game. A lot has to be fixed on this defense entering the Big 12 here in 2024. There are some really good offenses in this conference, but we got to start by going through the talent that they lost off of last year's defense, and there's a ton of guys in every position that you will see either gone through the portal, graduation, or in every position, there is at least one guy, I believe only one guy in every position, that is off to the NFL. We started with that defensive lineman gone to the league. It is Deshaun Mallory, 48 tackles and 2 sacks for him last year. Huge part to the defensive line from last season. You also do lose BJ Green and James Johnkham. I probably said that last name wrong, so I apologize, but you know, I said a couple of videos ago, I need to be more confident. James Johnkham is going to be gone through the portal, again, as well as BJ Green. Some pretty solid pieces there on the defensive line from last season. BJ Green led the team in sacks last year with 6. Johnkham added 20 tackles to this team from last season. So you look at your defensive line this year in 2022. Prince Dorba is going to be coming back. Anthony Cooper dealt with some injuries last year, but he'll be coming back. Clayton Smith, CJ Fight, and Elijah O'Neal. Again, all returners to the defensive line, while Justin Woodley, Roman Petrie, and Jeffrey Clark are all coming over from respective programs. Woodley is going to be coming over here from Cincinnati. You also do go ahead and take a look at some other pieces. Clark is coming in from Louisville, and then you have Petrie coming over from Purdue. You have a lot more transfers coming in, a couple guys coming over from Texas, another Purdue transfer coming in, an Arizona transfer in Jacob Kongaika that could see some pretty good playing time in 2024. Regardless, you're boosting up with a lot of transfers on the defensive line. Be curious to see how they all fit in with all the returners coming back as well. Linebacker room, Travion Brown is gone to the NFL, 53 tackles and a half a sack for him last year. Tack on a pass defended and a pick. Made it for the third leading tackler on the team and a pretty good linebacker, as you'll see him play on Sundays. And Will Schaefer is a guy that has entered the transfer portal and will be playing for a different program this year. More of a depth piece, though. He only had 5 tackles last season. So you get Caleb McCullough coming back to this linebacker room, 52 tackles, a sack and a pass defended, or a couple pass defended, I should say, for him last season. Tate Romney is another guy coming back, tied for that 4th leading tackle spot, both McCullough and Romney with 52 tackles last year. And again, more guys coming in through the transfer portal. Cyrus Fiaseu, again, but I know I definitely probably butchered that last name, and Keyshawn Elliott are guys coming in through the portal that'll see good playing time in the linebacker room for the Sun Devils in 2024, with a couple other names there that are just not mentioned on screen. NFL, you do lose Ro Torrance to the NFL out of the cornerback position. Ro Torrance goes. Torrance last season, 37 tackles, 3 pass defended, 1 pick for him last year. While you do lose guys like Demetrius Ford, Alfonso Taylor, those guys have graduated out of the cornerback room, and even more guys leave through the portal. Ed Woods and RJ Reagan are both gone off to new programs this season as well. So Torrance, Ford, Taylor, Woods, and Reagan, all of those guys are going to be gone out of the cornerback room this season, which left it very, very thin. Only Keith Abney was probably the most notable returner that you have coming back here in this room, and not a whole lot of production from him last season, only 2 tackles. He did have 1 pick, however, so a lot of pieces have to come in through the portal, and some depth will have to come up as well. Terrence Welch and Javon Robinson all come in through the transfer portal, but again, that cornerback room looking very thin for the Sun Devils this season. In the safety room, Chris Edmonds does leave to go off to the NFL. Really good player on this defense from last season. 2nd leading tackler, had 71 tackles and 2 pass defended last season. Jordan Clark and Josiah Cox will also both be leaving through the transfer portal. But the good news for the Sun Devil defense is you do get your leading tackler back. Shamari Simmons is back. He had 73 tackles, 6 pass defended, and a pick last season. Mason Williams, Xavier Alford also come back. But again, more guys come in through the portal. Cole Martin, Miles Rouser, and Kamari Wilson are all names that will be featured in the Sun Devil secondary. Again, they are all pieces coming in through the portal. First year here with the Sun Devil program. Kickers are people too. You got to show them some love, and they lose their primary punter and kicker from last year. Josh Carlson is gone off out of the punting room, and Dario Longhetto is gone out of the place kicking room. So you have a freshman punter coming in Canyon Floyd, and a kicker coming over from the portal, an Ohio State transfer in Parker Lewis. That should be your primary punter and place kicker for the Sun Devils in 2024. Overall, when you talk about this Sun Devil team, defensively, a lot of question marks again. How does the cornerback room fit out? How do the portal pieces fit in? You lost a ton of top-end talent off the defense from last season. It's a defense that saw its struggles last year and very well could do so again here in 2024. You move on to the schedule here for the Sun Devils. Any game at home will be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Sun Devils are going to win fairly easily, while any game in yellow going to happen to be a close competitive game, but one that I still think the Sun Devils are able to win. And red is any game that I foresee the Sun Devils losing, where they start out here with a home game against the Wyoming Cowboys. And even though Craig Bowl is, just before we dive on into that game, overall, this is a very hard non-conference slate here. For the talent that I believe is on this Arizona State team, I think this is a really, really hard non-conference stretch. Craig Bowl is gone at Wyoming, but the Cowboys are still going to be a very competitive team out of the Mountain West Conference this season. That being said, I think Arizona State is going to start out 2024 on the right foot. Again, Wyoming does lose that head coach, but a lot of pieces do come back. I just see the Sun Devils being able to fight their way through a win here, and I think they do beat the Wyoming Cowboys at home. Mississippi State is a team that I don't really like this season. I don't really like the Jeff Lebby hire. They lose Will Rogers. They lose a ton of really talented defensive pieces, either gone to the NFL, through the transfer portal, graduation, whatever have you. Mississippi State is just a team that I'm not really buying into here in 2024. And as shown here, by the way, I talked about this Arizona State team. I'm not really buying into them this year either. I think there will be small improvements made, but overall, probably nothing quite substantial. Yet this game is at home. It's in Tempe. Call it an upset if you will, but I think Arizona State is going to win at least 2 of their 3 non-conference games this season, and I do think that it is a win against Mississippi State that kicks things off here, so the momentum there continues. They start out great. It's a 2-0 start for the Sun Devils, and things are looking up for Kenny Dillingham's program in 2024. I can tell I'm going to be a very unpopular man in Tempe because the rest of the way, I don't see there being much good fortune for the Arizona State Sun Devils. You have to go on the road on a weekday to play the Texas State Bobcats. That's a team that beat the Baylor Bears on the road last season. And dare I say, for as good as that offense was last year, it's going to be even better in 2024. Even though the defense loses a lot of pieces, I think that takes a step in the right direction. And much like I talked about in my UTSA video, Texas State is a team that I'm buying hard into. I think G.J. Kinney is a phenomenal head coach. Jordan McLeod is coming in, the former James Madison quarterback. I just love Texas State this year, and I believe, to my knowledge, the first group of 5 over Power 4 game that I have predicted here, I think Texas State is going to win that game against the Arizona Sun Devils. Now, I know I probably missed a couple games here and there. It's just how things work, but overall, I really like this Texas State team. You have to go on the road. They beat a Big 12 team last year. Why not do it again? Texas State wins that one. They pull off what I think a lot of people would consider an upset against the Arizona State Sun Devils, and it'll kickstart a great year for G.J. Kinney squad, and then you just dive on into conference play, and it's not kind to you. On the road against Texas Tech, I see that one being a loss. Texas Tech returns a lot of very good pieces. They get some really good pieces in through the transfer portal. Offensively, defensively, I think Joey McGuire's group is going to be one of the better ones in the Big 12 Conference this year, at very least in the top half. I think Texas Tech is going to be a pretty good football team this year, going on the road to play in that one. Don't have much confidence in Sun Devils to come out with a win. You get your first bye week of the year, then you have to come back home before 2 very, very tough games as, you do have to play the Kansas Jayhawks and the Utah Utes. And again, I do think you lose both of them here. These are 2 teams I absolutely love in 2024. Kansas has Jalen Daniels back. Devin Neal is back. The defense should continue to see progress in the right direction. Kansas, I have as a tiny sleeper team in the Big 12 Conference. I think they'll be a little bit better record-wise than people are predicting right now. Kansas is the team that I love this year. Again, Jalen Daniels has to stay healthy, but Lance Leipold's a very good head coach, and Kansas has got a lot of good talent, and I am in love with this Utah team this season. Utah, I just think, is going to be a very good football team this year. Cam Rising is coming back. He has probably the best group of pass catchers I believe he has ever had here in Salt Lake City. We know what the style of defense Kyle Whittingham teams are going to play. They're going to punch you in the mouth before you even step on the field. Love Kyle Whittingham. Love the Utah Utes. That's a loss for the Arizona State Sun Devils. And then you got to go on the road and play Cincinnati. And I think Scott Satterfield's team takes a step in the right direction this year. They got a lot of solid pieces in through the transfer portal. I like what they're doing offensively and defensively. Satterfield, I think, is going to get this program moving in the right direction. The bowl game is possible for Cincinnati this season, but I do think that the Bearcats have a little bit more talent than the Arizona State Sun Devils, at least sit in the right place. Arizona State might very well be the most talented team overall, but I think by this point, Cincinnati will have a little bit more figured out, including this one being a road game. Nippert Stadium will be loud, and Arizona State loses that one there on the road. Second bye week of the year, and the misfortune just continues. The losing streak is now up to 6 when you lose to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Ollie Gordon's going to end up not being suspended for his little incident, but it wouldn't matter. This game is in Week 10. Ollie Gordon would be back. Alan Bowman is back. The Oklahoma State defense returns a lot of very good pieces. And let's be honest, it wasn't a very good defense last season, but as long as the Bowman can figure out his quarterback plays, touchdown interception numbers, I just don't think Arizona State's going to have the pieces to slow down this Oklahoma State rush game. I don't think they're going to be able to slow down Ollie Gordon. That's a loss for me on the road in Stillwater against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. UCF is going to be another offensive juggernaut this season, and especially with how thin some of these pieces in the secondary Arizona State is, I think the pass game of KJ Jefferson, a lot of really good wide receivers, and might I add, they have 2 1,400-yard rushers on that team from last season. RJ Harvey and a transfer coming over from Toledo in Penny Boone. UCF UCF, Central Florida, they're going to be a really solid team this season, and that's a loss there for the Arizona State Sun Devils. On the road against the Kansas State Wildcats, that's a loss too. I love Avery Johnson at quarterback. Chris Kleiman's a really good head coach, and Kansas State has a lot of very good pieces on it. So the losing streak here now up to 8. Well, I think you extend that 1 to 9, and we extend it to 10 there as well. The BYU Cougars very well might be the game here that I'm looking at. If you were to pick out one game in this Big 12 slate to where Arizona State probably has the best shot of winning, Cincinnati I think is close, but I think I'd give it to this game here against BYU. Still, though, I think BYU, Jake Retzlaff, is a pretty solid quarterback. They have some solid pieces offensively, some solid pieces defensively, and they're going to be very competitive in the Big 12 Conference this season. Again, a game I can very well see Arizona State winning, but I'll go with the loss there to BYU, and the loss to Arizona is pretty self-explanatory. Noah Fafita is back, Taitaroa McMillan is back, and even though Jed Fish is gone, Brent Brennan comes in. Arizona entering the Big 12, I think is ready to compete. They'll be a pretty good team this year, which I hate to do it to you fans in Tempe, but 2-10 is what I got for the Sun Devils this year. Really hard non-conference, coupled with just a lot of uncertainty within the roster, some positions being really thin. I doubted the Sun Devils last year, and they weren't really that great. I'm doubting them again this year, and I'm hoping they can prove me wrong, but I got them sitting at 2-10. Let me know what you think about the team in Tempe in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and we'll move on to the Texas State Bobcats in my next video. Goodbye.